Aloha, everybody. Happy Aloha Friday. My name is Sarah Slater Snyder, and I am here with you today to share about three self-compassion practices that will transform your life. So simple, and yet we just don't really talk about this. No, who taught us this, right? Hopefully your parents, but um, often this is not something that we're taught going through school. And, like, why self-compassion? Why is this important? Well, if you think about it, right, who is going to be with you throughout the rest of your life? You. And yet we invest so much of our time and our energy into others, right? And so if you think about it, like, would you speak to your best friend, your child, your partner, the way that you speak to yourself? Right? Is the way that you speak to yourself, hi Tamara, is the way that you speak to yourself loving? Is it kind? Or is your self-talk, does it need a little bit of work? Right? And so that's one of the things we're going to be talking about today is really how to treat yourself with more kindness, more care, more compassion. And so we're going to talk about essentially these three self-compassion practices that are going to help you to optimize your brain and your body so that you can cultivate a profound resilience within you, right? And that is the key, is actually creating within yourself everything that you need because it's already there, right? We're going to catalyze your growth through these practices. And we do this through consciously reframing our self-talk to give us really the freedom and the choice and the power to create the life of our dreams. But it all starts with how we speak to ourselves, how we treat ourselves, right? And so as we learn to essentially elevate our self-compassion, we're strengthening our presence with ourself, right? We learn to sort of operate more from our heart space. And from that place of presence, we can actually be more present with ourselves and with our loved ones. And that allows us to feel more fulfilled, more satisfied, more joyful in our relationships. It's really powerful. Now, who am I to be telling you all of this? My name is Sarah Slater Snyder. I am a licensed therapist, a registered yoga teacher, and an elite embodiment coach here in Hawaii. I've lived here for about 20 years. I fell in love with the island lifestyle and the culture here. And I've been blessed to work with hundreds, if not thousands, of girls and women through sort of my 15 plus years in the field of mental health, education, and wellness. And really, like, as I've worked my way through these fields, I've really come to see the power in integrating neuroscience, psychology, and yoga to align body, mind, and spirit in this really innovative and powerful way. And so I am here with you today because I'm so excited to share with you about how I have helped so many girls and women learn how to replace their anxiety, their guilt, their negative self-talk with self-compassion so they can cultivate healthier relationships with themselves so that they can finally embody their highest and wisest self using my embodied paradise methodology. I'm just going to share that with you quickly so that you get a sense of why this works and what it is, right? So there's really three parts to this embodied paradise methodology. The first part is that I teach my clients how to create their own fully embodied paradise. And we do that basically through learning tools and strategies that allow us to transform our exhausted reactivity, right, which often many of us are in, into really our own internal sanctuary. We build what's called expansive regulation, so nervous system regulation through experiential somatic soothing strategies. So these are simple strategies, right? We're actually going to do a 60-second create your own fully embodied paradise today within 60 seconds. It's so simple. It's just we have to realize and remember that we have access to all the tools that we need within us, right? So that's step one. Step two of my embodied paradise method is that we use what's called conscious reframing. And that is a powerful metacognitive process that stops anticipatory anxiety in its tracks. It rewires our thinking patterns. And essentially all we're doing is we're, awakening our commitment to our highest self. We are essentially approaching ourselves from a place of fearless courage, from empowered conviction, right? And this is where we learn how to reframe our limiting beliefs and to basically step into the conscious and confident, compassionate, and unapologetic CEO of our life, right? And it's actually more simple than we realize. But we just need some subtle, it's like these subtle mindset shifts that make all the difference. And then finally, the third step of my embodied paradise method is that I teach you my elite embodiment practices that allow you to connect with your highest and your wisest self, right? And essentially you are giving yourself permission. When you say yes to yourself, you're giving yourself permission to elevate body, mind, and spirit so you can live as that highest self, right? And embrace really self-compassion as a daily practice. And that again creates more authentic presence, creates more fulfillment and more meaning in your daily life. So let's get to it. Let's talk a little bit about it. So one of the things that I think is just an important and subtle distinction is to understand that within each of us, we hold both feminine and masculine energy, this yin and this yang of our own sort of energetic presence, right? And the yin side, the more feminine side, is more of like the comforting, soothing kind of validation. That's the part of us that's when we allow ourselves to focus on just being with ourselves, right? That's the yin side. What happens is when we essentially overwork, overcommit, overdo, overgive, we're in more of like the masculine energy, and that's what leads to burnout. And so what we need is essentially to learn how to lean back or lean sort of, away from that tendency many of us have to overdo it, and instead to practice surrendering, to practice sort of allowing and releasing, right? And that is challenging. I mean, to be honest, it took me many, many years to get there. But what I want just to share with you is that when we give ourselves permission to release control, to step out of that more yang masculine energy, we are able to actually start practicing comforting ourselves, to take care of our emotional needs, right? We can practice, I'm going to talk specifically about different aspects of that and what that may look like. But an example might be sort of an example of comforting ourselves, basically to take care of our emotional needs might be like just present moment awareness, noticing the here and now, being present in the moment, right? It's like, again, it's like so simple, so subtle, and yet so many of us are like living, in tomorrow already, or in 3 days from now, or in a week, or a year from now. We're just constantly living in the future, and that future focus really prevents us from being able to be with ourselves, right? That's that yin practice of self-compassion. We also have to learn how to practice soothing ourselves. Like, if you think about as a baby, right? Our parents, our caregivers were the ones that essentially soothed us. They taught us to regulate our nervous system, often through co-regulation, depending how responsive they were, right? Like we would cry as a baby and they would hold us and care for us. And through their calm, we would learn to calm. But if we didn't have that, if maybe our parents were not able to be as responsive, if maybe we didn't quite learn how to soothe ourselves, then that is a huge place where so many people look outside of themselves. They look to these external relationships, external validation, whatever the thing is, that the next shiny thing, the new car. They look to like sort of material things as a way to soothe ourselves. And there's no judgment in that, except that is not very sustainable, right? And so what we have to learn is actually to soothe ourselves. We need sort of these own soothing strategies that really help you to create your own internal sanctuary, your own internal paradise. Yeah, Tamara, you know what I'm talking about, right? 100%. And then the last piece too of this like yin sort of self-compassion is that we need to learn how to validate our feelings by, again, consciously reframing our self-talk. So for example, so many of the women that I work with are struggling, and this is like, again, I think so much of this is cultural, but so many girls, so many women have this inner dialogue that is so negative. I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'm not good enough, I'm not perfect enough, I'm not, all these things. Brene Brown talks about these as sort of our not enough beliefs, right? And what would happen if we learn how to just give ourselves permission to, number one, be exactly as we are, right? Like just be ourselves, be present with ourselves, and validate how we're feeling. So you're allowed to feel those things, but just because you feel them, it doesn't make them true. And that's such a subtle, nuanced thing. But so many of my clients don't realize that, like, they believe that their thoughts and their feelings are facts, and they're not. They're just thoughts and feelings, right? That's the job of the mind, is essentially to sort of chatter and to have a lot of irrational, emotional, talk. And just because we think it or feel it, that doesn't make it true. So what if we could learn to control our thinking? If we could learn to consciously reframe our thoughts so that rather than the I'm not good enough language, we could speak to ourselves from a place of I am enough. I am enough just as I am. And I'm allowed to feel my feelings and I'm allowed to be me, right? Like giving ourselves permission. There is something very powerful about that, to create space for yourself, right? And so that's sort of that soothing yin, more feminine energy when it comes to self-compassion. Now, that's not to negate the masculine side of the self-compassion, the yang, right? That's really the part of us that's more focused on like acting in the world. That's the part of us that protects ourselves by setting and holding unapologetic boundaries. That's a self-compassion practice, right? I have a whole training on unapologetic boundary setting. If that interests you, it's under the guide section of the Women's Wellness Circle. Um, Also, so along the lines of this yang sort of self-compassion practice, we need to learn how to provide for ourselves by basically checking in daily, if not sort of multiple times throughout the day, and asking ourselves, what do I need in this moment? Right? And then giving it to yourself. So the yang part is the part that actually like acts on what we need. It gives us what we need without apologizing, without feeling guilty. It's the part of us that says, okay, what do I need in this moment? I need to eat some lunch, right? I need to feed my body. This morning, I really wanted to go jump in the ocean. It just wasn't happening. That was what I felt like I was needing. But actually, when I tuned in, when I checked in, I knew I needed to come home. I needed to take care of myself. I needed to feed myself so that I had energy to sort of show up for today, right? And it's important to check in and to notice just what do we need and then to give that to ourselves, right? So that's the other piece. The third sort of piece of that yang is motivating ourselves rather than from a place of like fear or criticism, which I see a lot of my clients um, are very self-critical, and that's a way they tell me to motivate themselves. If they like talk harshly to themselves, that it's like it motivates them to do more or do better, probably because they're hearing somebody else's voice, some other person who's been critical in their life, and that's what they're used to as a way to motivate yourself. But actually, it's way more motivational if you learn how to motivate yourself from a place of kindness and support and understanding, right? If you can actually talk to yourself from that place of love rather than fear, it's like a totally different experience. So a little, I just, I wanted to start there. Just, and if you guys have any questions, definitely throw it into the comments. Let me know if there's anything you're wondering about that yin and that yang of self-compassion. I wanted to talk a little bit about sort of some ideas around self-compassion. And again, there's so many layers to this, right? We're going to talk about sort of emotional, physical, social, even spiritual self-care, because there's so many ways to do that, and self-compassion. So when we talk about sort of the emotional side of self-compassion, that's where we have to make space for ourselves, right? Intentionally scheduling me time. And honestly, if I can tell you one thing that my clients walk away with, it's creating time and space for themselves. One of my clients reflected back some language I was sharing with her, and she said that she loved the concept of what's called a puka in Hawaiian. That is sort of the word for like a pocket of a hole or a pocket of time. And she was saying, like, I'm going to create these pukas for myself in the morning because that feels so good for me. And so when we're talking about our own emotional self-compassion and self-care, right, can we give ourselves permission to develop like a really relaxing and nourishing and soothing, whether it's an evening ritual, a morning ritual, something that just sort of, again, like feels nourishing to you, right? Creating a puka, a space for yourself, right? That is sort of that practice of emotional self-care. And there's so many other components to it, right? So some elements of that emotional side are we have to learn how to say no to things that are not serving us so that we can learn to say yes to the things that do serve us, so that we can say yes to ourselves and yes to creating that time, right? So as part of that, maybe we choose to practice some mindfulness, mindful exercises to bring us into the present moment, right? We're going to do one in like 2 minutes. We're actually going to do a 60-second just present moment exercise to really create your own internal paradise in 60 seconds. But a huge piece again of this like emotional self-compassion, what it looks like really is like allowing yourself to be present without judging your thoughts, without judging your feelings, without judging yourself. So really like to stop being your harshest critic and to allow yourself to lean into mistakes, because we all make mistakes. You're human, right? It's going to happen. But when we can actually embrace what I call sort of, it's actually what Carol Dweck calls a growth mindset, where we're leaning into failure and leaning into mistakes as these opportunities to learn and to grow and to sort of, develop ourselves, it changes everything. Like if we're in what's called a fixed mindset, again, it's like we just feel like any mistake we make is the end of the road. We're a failure, right? And that is not the healthiest place to be. And again, it comes back to that whole like trying to motivate yourself from a place of fear. Not so healthy. When we can shift into motivating ourselves from a place of love, from giving ourselves permission to see a mistake or a failure or even just sort of a, whatever happened as an opportunity to grow, to learn, to move forward, it totally shifts our experience, right? Because we are essentially treating ourselves with kindness and love and saying, you know what? Okay, I didn't do what I had hoped to do today. There's always tomorrow, no problem, right? So not only are we creating time and space, these pukas for ourselves, but we're also shifting our self-talk. That's part of that emotional self-compassion, right? And you might even like, as part of that too, I mean, there's so much research that documents the power behind just gratitude practices and how simply just like making a list of what you're grateful for, or making sort of conscious effort to thank someone in your day, or doing a check-in with your kids, like your rosebud and your thorn with your children. The rose being the highlight of the day, the thorn being something that was challenging, and the bud being something you're looking forward to, right? Just taking that time absolutely shifts your happiness. It elevates your happiness. Tons of research supports that, right? So giving yourself permission to take care of yourself in that way. Okay, so that's emotionally. Physically, there's so many things we can do here, right? We can get ourselves outside, get in the sunshine, take a walk, to go for a run, move your body in whatever way feels good to you, right? Okay, I'm going to answer, Tamara, I'm going to come back to your question in just a second. Thank you for asking that. Going to bed early, speaking of physical self-care, right? Like get yourself to bed. And I'm speaking to myself here because this is definitely even an issue for me at times too, right? Get yourself to bed at a time so that you wake up and you feel good in the morning. You feel rested, right? Go for a bike ride, get a massage, drink more water, hydrate, right? Like there's such simple ways. Also, honestly, the simplest thing, just go outside and put your feet in the grass, feel the earth under your feet, or put your feet in the sand. Be present with the experience of just being, right? That physical, that is so grounding. Being in nature, that is so grounding. And physically, that's such a great self-compassion practice. Okay, so Tamara, you asked, how do I get out of this fixed mindset? Well, great question. It's a practice. I think that's the key, right? So all these things I'm sharing, it requires more than just, I would say, like it's not like a one-time thing. This is like it's an awareness that we build so that what I teach my clients is that when it comes to this concept of like consciously reframing from the fixed mindset to the growth mindset, we have to, one, build awareness that the fixed mindset is there. And then we have to catch it. We have to start catching it and naming it, like, oh, there's that fixed mindset again. Oh, there's that irrational sort of mind coming in with all the limiting beliefs and all the fears. Honestly, I have my clients name it. Some of my clients have named that part of themselves that goes to that very irrational place. Judgy Judy, angry Amy, like you can come up with any name you want, but essentially they're talking about like the amygdala, the part of the brain that's responsible for our intense emotions, our irrational thinking, right? And sometimes just naming that part of ourself self-distances enough that we're not blaming ourselves anymore. We're not like beating ourselves up, but instead we can be like, oh, that angry Amy, there she goes again, right? Like she's, going off and telling, has all these beliefs. And when we do that, when we can separate from that sort of, irrational and really intense emotional experience, then we might be able to give ourselves permission to change the dialogue, change the narrative. So step one is build awareness, but the piece of self-awareness is that the second piece of it. So step one is awareness. Step two is non-judgment. And that's the piece that a lot of my clients struggle with, that we have to get into a habit of noticing without judgment, right? So if we can do that, it becomes so much easier to then say, okay, I'm not being my best self in this moment, but I'm going to take a moment and just visualize, how would my best self respond here, right? So if I know that, okay, this is totally my fixed mindset talking, this is angry Amy talking, judgy Judy, whatever, right? Instead, can I lean into this and see this as an opportunity to grow, as an opportunity to learn, and I'm going to talk about that when I get to the conscious reframing part, but just simply attaching, Tamara, the word yet to your experience can change everything. I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. So I don't know if that answered your question, but I hope so. Okay, so I'm going to continue just for a few more. I want to talk about some social self-compassion and self-care ideas. So big one is take out the toxic. So if there are toxic people in your life, if there are people that are dragging you down, that do not make you feel good about yourself, that are not elevating you and not supporting you, then why are they in your life? Right? And what do you need to do to set some boundaries to take care of yourself? So that's one piece. A second piece is that I'm sure that there are people in your life who you do trust, who are healthy and who are, wonderful, supportive people. Bring them into your life, call them, talk to them when you're having a moment, right? And be intentional about connecting with them or reconnecting with them if there's somebody that you've lost touch with, or maybe there was an unresolved conflict, right? Sometimes also, again, it's just like intention. So if we are just going through the motions of our day and we're not being intentional about like scheduling a date night with our partner, or, having like intentional playtime with our child. I have been tried to be very conscious. I'm not great 100% of the time, but I try as much as I can to put my phone away and just play with my almost 4-year-old, just be present with him. And that is such a practice of self-compassion. It's also a practice of compassion for him as well as for me, right? But where can you be more intentional in your relationships? So choosing who you spend time with each day and spending that time with people who make you feel good about yourself, and where that time feels good, what you're doing with them feels good to you, right? And then the other piece too, and I think a lot of women struggle with this, is asking for help when you need it. So if you can tell that doing something on your own is not working, then reach out for some help, right? Reach out for support. Support is there. You don't have to do it alone. Okay, so lastly here, spiritually, when we come to and we're thinking about sort of, emotional, or excuse me, sort of self-compassion from more of a spiritual perspective, there's so many ways that you can take care of yourself and treat yourself with compassion, whether that is just simply making time to meditate. It doesn't even have to be daily, and it doesn't have to be long. Like we're talking 1 to 2 minutes whenever you can do it, right? Like one of my favorite practices, I know this sounds ridiculous, but is like meditating at the grocery store. Like if I'm in line for something and the day is just going, I've got a million things to do, but the line's not moving, it's a really beautiful practice to just almost like close my eyes in the grocery store in line, take some deep breaths, connect to my breath, connect to my body, and then just trust that maybe being here in this line in this moment is where I need to be. I don't know why I'm going to be late to this or that, but this is where I need to be. Can I just be grateful? Can I be present? Right? So that's one practice. Also so simple, but doing something nice for other people actually does elevate us on sort of the spiritual level, right? We know that whether we're donating money or time or just energy to help someone, whether it's to help a charity of your choosing or just to help a friend in need or someone, even if it's a stranger, right? So finding ways to really like do something that is paying it forward is also a way to absolutely boost our happiness, to take care of ourselves. It feels really good. It elevates our neurotransmitters, right? And so if you can find ways to really like use your strength and do things that energize you more often, you're going to feel better and you're going to be taking care of yourself on that sort of more spiritual level, right? Sometimes even, so another really simple practice is doing like a 10-minute body scan. This is where for me yoga nidra is a game changer, right? Like I have a whole live on yoga nidra if that interests you. But that is basically a practice of yogic sleep. It is one of the most powerful practices that I have found for anxiety, depression, chronic pain, insomnia. I mean, all the things. It is really incredible. It's similar to a body scan, but it does involve some other components. It's essentially like a guided practice you do while lying down. I actually have a free one on my website. I think it's 8 minutes, the short one, and the long one is 30 minutes. Um, Feel free to check that out. It's aboundingcircles.com/resources. There's a bunch of free resources there. I want to take a minute though. So let's do like a little yin practice. We're going to do some yin self-compassion. So just bear with me here. 60 seconds. Let's create our own paradise. Wherever you are, if you can close your eyes, join me. If you cannot, that's okay too. So we're going to place one hand on our heart and one hand on the belly. Okay, let's close the eyes and just take a deep breath in and out. Allow yourself to come into the moment. Arrive into your breath. Arrive into your body. I'm going to inhale for a count of 2 and exhale for a count of 4. Inhaling 1, 2. Exhaling 1, 2, 3, 4. This time inhaling for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhaling for a count of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Doing a couple of those on your own. Inhaling for 4. Exhaling for 6. On the next inhale, let's inhale for a count of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exhaling for a count of 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Doing that a few more times, inhaling at your own pace, whatever numbers felt good to you. Either inhaling for 6 and exhaling for 8, or inhaling for 4, exhaling for 6. The idea is that the exhale is longer than the inhale. Taking a few more rounds, relaxing the shoulders, allowing the face, the eyes, the jaw to soften as we breathe. Good. Just letting go of any tension with each exhale breath. Releasing whatever is not serving you. Cultivating gratitude in this moment for this internal sanctuary that you've created here. And on the next inhale, mentally repeat the word I. And on the exhale, mentally repeat the word am. I. 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 Am. I am. Take a few more breaths and just allow that to integrate, allow that to sink in, to absorb all of that, to just notice how you feel, connecting to your breath, being present in this moment. There's nowhere to be but right here, right now. Beautiful. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. Okay, so simple self-compassion practice, right? So many elements to that. Just elongating the exhalation, right? I'm wondering if you did that with me, how are you feeling? Drop that in the comments, just how you're feeling, just after 60 seconds of noticing the breath, elongating the exhale, moving into that place of being present, inhaling I, exhaling am, right? Sometimes that's such a powerful but simple practice. Okay, so we've been talking about sort of these practices for self-compassion, right? Again, I want to come into just talking briefly about that second step of my. Oh, that's beautiful, Tamara. She said she did that. She did that in the shower. I love it. Coming into the second step of my embodied paradise method, right? So conscious reframing is step two, and here's such a subtle shift, but this is really like the second. So that was our first self-compassion practice, was our 60-second paradise, right? Our second self-compassion practice is learning how to distinguish between our behavior rather than like sort of so the distinction between evaluating our behavior versus evaluating ourself as a person, like our character or our disposition, right? So I'll give you an example. So let's say you forget to call your friend, your best friend or something on her birthday, right? So immediately we might think to ourselves, oh my gosh, I'm a bad friend. But if we focus on our behavior rather than on our character, right, then we may not say I'm a bad friend or a bad person, but instead, oh wow, that was really not thoughtful of me. My behavior was the issue, not me as a person. So that distinction actually can change everything, because if we're not attacking ourselves and blaming ourselves for who we are, but instead just for decisions or choices or, sort of these behaviors that we make, we can change behavior, right? If that's easy, we can actually do that. So that's a simple, super simple way to reframe, right? Which is, again, sort of our second self-compassion practice. And I'll give you another simple way to reframe. So Tamara, coming back to you and what you asked, the power of yet, adding yet onto the end of sort of a sentence totally shifts you from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, right? So again, the fixed mindset is sort of the I suck, I'm not good at this, I'm a failure, right? Seeing a mistake as just sort of the end of the line, no opportunity for growth or for moving forward, versus if we see that a mistake is just an opportunity to learn, or we recognize basically a growth mindset is when we can say, I'm learning here. I am in the process of learning, right? I am human. I'm going to make mistakes, and that is okay. I'm going to lean into those mistakes. I'm going to lean into failure, right? So I'll give you an example. So instead of, oh, I'm not good at this, or I suck at this, or whatever, I'm not good at this yet. Or rather than, I don't understand this, so I'm stupid, I'm this, I'm that, right? We can say, I don't understand this yet. Or I'm not in a career that I love yet. Or I'm not my best self yet. It's so simple, but that can change and shift you from the fixed mindset into a growth mindset, right? Okay, so last sort of the third self-compassion practice that transforms and changes everything is the practice of what I call elite embodiment. And what I mean by that, really, like, embodiment is the practice of coming home to yourself, right? So elite embodiment is simply the practice of coming home to your highest self, to that part of us that is like our higher, wisest self, right? Our, what Abraham Maslow called sort of our like self-actualized self, that our highest potential, right? So how do we achieve elite embodiment, right? Wow, okay. Well, if we want to move into our highest self, then we need to treat ourselves and talk to ourselves like we are our own best friend. We stop relying on other people to fill our needs, and instead we fill our needs. We take care of ourselves. That's not to say that we don't receive from other people, we do, but we give to ourselves first, and then we can take care of others and or receive from others. But the practice of elite embodiment is about really how we embrace and embody our relationship with ourself. So take yourself out for walks, take yourself out on solo dates, buy yourself or pick yourself flowers. Listen to what your body, your mind, and your spirit are needing and give that to yourself. That is elite embodiment, right? Make yourself a priority. Stop apologizing for taking up space and instead practice daily gratitude, right? So rather than, I'm sorry I'm late, use gratitude. Thank you for waiting for me, right? Again, that's another sort of conscious reframing, is shifting from apology into gratitude. I did a whole live on that. That's the Unapologetic Boundaries live that you can go watch. Elite embodiment also looks like celebrating and honoring the goddess that is within you. She's there. She's within each one of us, right? So check in and ask yourself throughout the day, what do I need in this moment to bring me joy? Right? Like, that's it. So simple. And then give that to yourself, right? Allows, and that is the yin and the yang. The yin is saying, what do I need in this moment to give me joy? Making space for that, allowing yourself to experience that. And then the yang is giving it to yourself, doing what you need to do to give that back to yourself. It's powerful. It's so powerful. And, along the same lines of gratitude, like just imagine if you allowed yourself to really like shift into a practice, create a practice of gratitude, whatever that looks like for you. Could be a gratitude journal. You don't even have to make it daily. It could just be a few times a week. For families, I've seen them create gratitude jars where everybody in the family writes down on a piece of paper something they're grateful for, and they throw it into the jar. And at the end of the week or at the end of the month, you read them as a family. It's a really beautiful practice, and it celebrates gratitude, right? And that as a practice can really shift our experience and our connection to other people. So whatever that looks like for you, I want you to consider some of these elite embodiment practices as a way to elevate into your highest self. And if this interests you, if you found this live and some of these self-compassion practices interesting, or you still have questions about them, I would love to hear from you, right? I really am so passionate about what I teach women, and my embodied paradise method will help you to fire on all cylinders. It will get you elevating into that place that you are desiring, to living out your life at full capacity, at your highest potential. And it doesn't require a lot of time, right? Like I offer these 30-day intensives. I'm offering a 90-day intensive. My Abounding Woman program is a 90-day program. I'm going to be sharing a lot more about this, you guys, next week. There's a lot shifting in my world and a lot of exciting announcements that are going to be coming next week. I'm so excited to share them with you. But I would love to connect more with any of you if you want to reach out privately to me. Or if you want to just drop in the comments paradise, I would love to connect with you. I will reach out, we can chat, and just see what you're doing to optimize your health, and if there's any gaps in your process, and how my embodied paradise method can support you in elevating into your highest and wisest self. So I appreciate everybody who tuned in. If you're watching the replay, be sure to let me know and just comment replay. And I really look forward to connecting with you guys. And I hope you have a beautiful Aloha Friday. When I connect in with what I am needing in this moment, I am going to go jump in the ocean, because that is feeling really good to me. So whatever it is that you are needing in this moment, I hope that you go and give that to yourself. All right, everybody. Aloha.